There's no cooler action hero than James Bond. He set the standard in the genre for over 50 years, and fans love to compare the actors who've played him. And in this video, I was gonna do the same thing. But then I wondered, what if we went a step further? What if we just had two James Bonds fight it out in the same film? It might be impossible in real life, but here we can do anything. And I can't imagine any James Bond video that would be cooler than that. Now, famous characters have gone head-to-head on screen before, and I found that it only works if you're able to bring their worlds together in a believable way. And that's what we're going for here. Our story will jump off from their last two films, Spectre and Die Another Day. And of course, we will have to make some small changes to pull this off, but I think it's worth a try. So let's do it. Our movie begins in the MI6 building in London, England. 007 gets debriefed by M, his boss, on a successful small operation in Syria. But something explodes above them. Bond and M crawl from the debris and head upstairs to find the building almost empty, with shadows of people burned into the walls. The only survivor they find is Miss Moneypenny, who is collapsed and smoking on the ground. He tries to revive her, but passes out from the heat. He wakes up in the hospital with M standing over him. M says that MI6 was destroyed by a new remote weapon that can superheat electronics. It was used against them by Emil Hakan, a Venezuelan operative who they've been surveilling for years. And Hakan is planning a much bigger attack. Craig leaps up and slams M into the wall, asking why they didn't kill Hakan. M says that the surveillance is not legal. They had no other evidence, and Venezuela is highly unstable. Craig says that they're insane, and they can't let people die. M says that there are layers to these things. Craig throws him down and escapes the hospital. Later in the USA, a familiar man docks a boat in Martha's Vineyard. He heads home with a woman we also recognize, and they find M waiting inside. He introduces himself and asks him to accompany him to international waters, where they're brought on board the HMS Bristol and taken to a secret room. M tells him what happened at MI6, and that an agent with a license to kill has gone rogue. Pierce says what else is new. M says that the agent is James Bond. He explains to Pierce that 007 is a program made to train perfect agents, then briefs him on the current situation, telling him that a single assassination triggered World War I, and the same is expected between nuclear powers if the current 007 kills Hakan. Pierce says, "Looks like you really ballsed it up then." "Not yet. We've got one plan." Pierce says, "What?" "You. We've determined that you're the only man on Earth who might reach him first. The odds are long, but all of Her Majesty's resources will be at your disposal." We cut to Venezuela, where Craig departs a plane, removing a disguise. He obtains a police car, but can't find any records on Hakan. After gently interrogating some street thugs, he finds his way to a gala hosted by Adriana, Hakan's mistress. After a brief introduction, she warms to him, but says she hasn't seen Hakan in weeks. His best bet is a friend of his named Beto, serving time at the local prison. But before Craig can take her away, she receives a drink, a dry martini, from another man. After spotting him, she leaves Craig to go with him, and Craig storms out. A short time later, Craig cuts his way through the fence at the prison and scouts the area. At the same time, Adriana walks in the front door, arm in arm with Pierce, and looking quite satisfied. She has the corrupt guards get him files on Hakan's associates, and Pierce then heads to Beto's cell. But Beto tells him that he is innocent. Like many poor men, he has accepted money from Hakan to take the rap for his crimes. But they're interrupted by an explosion, as Craig blasts his way through the cell's wall using his keychain detonator. For the first time, the two Bonds make eye contact through the bars, but say nothing, as Craig quickly drags Beto out before the guards arrive, and interrogates him in the car. He quickly realizes that Beto is innocent, and Beto gives him Hakan's phone number, and Craig locates Hakan's phone with his GPS. Craig releases Beto to go home to his family, but promises to help him later. We cut ahead to Hakan's compound. A henchman comes in to tell him that there's a scuffle at the north gate. He laughs until the henchman says that the gate was opened, and all the guards were put down. He says to send the guards from the south gate, but looks out the window to see Pierce polishing them off. Hakan gulps, and grabs his passport and runs for his life. A short time later, Hakan pulls out in his personal train car, but finds himself being pursued by another train, commandeered by Pierce. It catches up, and Pierce leaps onto the back of the car and throws the guards off the side. Hakan tries to climb out the other window, but a gunshot nearly hits him, as he sees Craig driving alongside the train in his car. In disbelief, Hakan just crouches down and mumbles prayers to himself. Soon, the door to the train car is forced open, and Pierce walks in. But Pierce says that he's not going to kill him, just extract a confession. Hakan plays dumb, and Pierce drags him to the door. But when he gets there, Craig kicks it open, knocking them both down. Craig tells Hakan he's got some pretty good henchmen, but Hakan reaches behind the door, produces a machine gun, and tries to shoot him. He misses, and Craig pins him down. Hakan curses him, blaming capitalists for his country's decay. Craig tells him he's a mass murderer, and that this is the end. But when he puts his PP-7 to Hakan's head, there's another shot from Pierce, knocking the weapon from Craig's hand. Hakan grabs his machine gun and aims it at both of them, but the train goes under an overpass. In the dark, he sees only glimpses of faces, one then the other. His bullets hit nothing until he runs and jumps out the window. The two Bonds then fight each other. Craig eventually wins. He puts plastic cuffs on Pierce and starts to leave him behind. But Pierce yells out, "Your name is James Bond. You were born on November 11th. Your parents died in a mountain climbing accident." Craig stops and asks, "Who are you?" He replies, "I'm James Bond too." Later, both men sit together, as Pierce finishes explaining that MI6 learned to use a set of psychological experiences to create perfect agents. After a few moments, Craig answers, "Espionage is cruel, but not as cruel as what we fight," and he takes Pierce's PP-7, grabs Hakan's papers, and leaves. After he does, Pierce turns on his watch laser and starts to burn the cuffs off. Craig tracks Hakan to London, where he heads to the Hotel Indigo, but when he tries to reserve a room for James Bond, they say they already have someone under that name. He gets a different room and receives an encrypted text from Beto with the location of Hakan's hideout. Craig goes there and records their conversation through the wall, as Hakan finalizes plans with his henchmen to attack at Buckingham Palace. But Adriana is there, and she smells his cologne. The henchmen break the wall, and Craig fights them off, but Adriana hits him from behind, grabs his phone, and escapes. He gets outside and chases Adriana through the London streets, exchanging gunshots. He's dazed, and she eventually gets away, but she immediately turns a corner and crashes into nothing. And Pierce turns the cloak off on his invisible car, takes the phone for himself, and leaves. He then hacks into it with him, discovering the plan for himself. That evening, Craig subdues several guards and sneaks into the party through a back door. He frantically searches for Hakan, but finds nothing, until he hears someone mention how beautiful the view is on the roof. Not long after, Pierce arrives with a team of London police. He orders them and the palace guards to silently secure the area and find the device, and heads to the courtyard himself. There, he notices a drone hovering over the palace. Meanwhile, on the roof, Hakan barricades the doors. He looks up at his device and laughs, but before he can finish, Craig climbs over the edge of the roof and tackles him. At the same time, an Mi-5 helicopter flies over them, and Pierce leaps out, grabbing the drone in midair and dragging it down, crashing onto both of them. All three are left groggy, but Craig and Hakan continue fighting, while Pierce pulls the drone open and desperately tries to disarm it. As the countdown nears its final seconds, Craig knocks Hakan down and puts his gun to Hakan's head. Pierce screams, "No!" Craig yells back, "You're wasting your time," and Pierce replies with Craig's own words, "Intelligence is cruel, but not as cruel as what we fight." And with that, Pierce dives on the device, and it detonates under his own body. Craig wakes up to see that the palace and the city are unharmed. But in the sky, a massive heat shadow has been left on the clouds in the shape of Pierce, allowing everyone in London to see the results of Hakan's attempted attack. Later, the barricaded roof door breaks open, and Craig comes out, with Hakan alive and cuffed. He drops him and all the evidence in front of the police. We cut ahead to the debriefing on the HMS Bristol. Craig says that he's retiring. M apologizes for the lies, but says that the previous agent has shown that the world needs a James Bond. M agrees to the retirement, but only if Craig helps train his successor. He nods, and they view a wall of potential James Bonds as the movie ends. I think this would be a cool send-off for Daniel Craig, and would allow us to add a new, real-world element to the James Bond series. And while it's hard to pull something like this off, I hope it worked enough to be a fun watch. If it was, give it a share, and subscribe for more. Thanks.